The wind howled like a ghost through the snow-covered mountains of Avalar Prime. It was always cold here, cold enough to freeze steel in minutes, cold enough to silence a scream. The colony had been built to survive the worst of this planet's weather, with thick walls, underground bunkers, and heated domes. But even the strongest shelters couldn't stop what was coming. Elara Voss sat alone in the control room, her fingers tapping softly on the touchscreen. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of monitors and blinking lights. Outside, the storm had grown worse. Snow slammed against the dome like 1,000 fists, and the sensors were starting to fail. She leaned forward, frowning at the screen. One of the seismic monitors was showing strange tremors, tiny vibrations beneath the surface, too steady to be natural. "That's not a quake," she whispered to herself. "That's something else." Elara was a tech officer, trained in systems, signals, and survival. She wasn't the type to panic easily, but something about these signals made her chest feel tight. She tried contacting the mountain patrol, but there was no response. Far above the colony, hidden by the blizzard, something massive moved through the sky, silent, invisible. A fleet of Araktor ships hovered just beyond sight, cloaked by advanced technology. These alien warships had destroyed entire planets without warning. Now they had chosen Avalar Prime as their next target. Down on the ground, Captain Ryan Hale led a patrol through the deep snow. He was tall, strong, and used to the cold, but today felt different. His breath came out in clouds of white mist, and the mountains seemed too quiet, even for a storm. He adjusted his visor and scanned the ridge. "There's movement," he said to his team, pointing toward a frozen cliff. They stopped. Nothing moved. Only the snow blew past them in waves. Then came the sound, soft at first, like a low hum, growing louder and deeper until it made the ground shake. Ryan raised his weapon. "Everyone back to the sleds. Now." But it was too late. From beneath the ice, strange machines burst upward, long metal arms spinning, clawing, digging. One soldier was grabbed and pulled into the snow before he could scream. The others scattered, slipping, falling, running. Back in the control room, Elara's screen turned red. Alarm messages filled the air. Perimeter breached. Unknown units detected. She stood up quickly, her heart pounding. "Ryan," she said aloud, but there was no one to hear her. Outside, the storm swallowed the screams. Inside, the colony went into lockdown. The power flickered. Lights dimmed. Elara took a deep breath and grabbed her jacket. She knew this was no simple attack. Something far worse had arrived, and if they didn't act fast, Avalar Prime would be lost forever. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was the silence of something watching, waiting, ready to strike again. Snow covered the mountains like a heavy white blanket, hiding everything beneath. But under that silence, danger moved. Elara Voss stood at the entrance of the control dome, watching the snow fall in thick sheets. Her fingers were cold even with gloves on, and her breath fogged in the air. She had tried contacting Ryan again and again, still nothing. She felt the fear creeping in, but pushed it down. "Think, Elara. Don't freeze. Think." She ran back inside and sat at her console. The outer security feeds were down, blown by the storm or by something worse. She switched to satellite backup, patched through old relay code, and finally found a signal. The screen flickered. Then came the image, grainy and full of static, but clear enough to see. Dark shapes moved through the snow, tall, inhuman figures with glowing eyes and long limbs. Machines followed behind them, dragging sharp drills and blowing tools. She zoomed in. They weren't scavengers or pirates. These were military units, alien units. Elara's heart raced. She had read files about the Araktor Dominion in deep space reports. Nobody believed they'd come this far. But now they were here, on Avalar Prime, walking through human snow like they'd owned it. She quickly saved the footage and sent it to the Council's emergency channel. Then she opened the colony-wide system. "This is Tech Officer Elara Voss. All units prepare for full lockdown. Hostile alien forces confirmed on the northern ridge. Repeat, this is not a drill. Meanwhile, deep in the mountains, Captain Ryan Hale crawled out from a pile of snow and broken ice. His helmet was cracked, and blood ran down his forehead. 2 of his team members were gone. The others were scattered or buried. He couldn't hear anyone on the radio. He got to his feet, coughing. Every part of him ached, but he kept moving. The storm was still howling, and behind him, the machines were drilling into the mountain wall. What were they doing? Mining? Or building something? He stayed low and slipped between icy rocks. One of the machines passed right by him, dragging something behind it. It took Ryan a moment to realize it was a human body, wrapped in frozen fabric. His jaw tightened. His people were being taken. Back at the colony, Elara was rerouting energy to shield generators. She kept hearing strange echoes through the radio, crackling voices, low growls, and something that sounded like a whisper in a language she didn't know. She froze when one word came through clearly: extraction. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A deep, shaking rumble passed through the dome like a pulse. The walls vibrated. Snow began falling from the ceiling vents. Elara grabbed a scanner. The tremors were not random. They were timed, steady, almost like footsteps beneath the ground. She looked up, eyes wide with fear. They're not just outside. She backed away slowly. They're under us. And far beneath the surface, something began to wake. The snow fell harder, covering everything in a thick white fog. Captain Ryan Hale limped through the icy forest, every breath sharp in his throat. His coat was torn and his fingers were numb. Still, he didn't stop. He had to get back to the colony. He had to warn them. Behind him, the alien machines searched the cliffs, their blue lights cutting through the snow. Ryan ducked under a frozen branch and pressed himself flat against a rock. One of the hunters passed by, only a few meters away. Its metal legs sank into the snow without a sound. Ryan held his breath. Then something strange happened. The snow around him started to melt, not from the machines, but from him. Steam rose from the ground where his hands touched the ice. His skin glowed faintly red under the frost-covered sleeves. He looked down, confused and alarmed. He hadn't felt warm. But now he wasn't just warm, he was hot. The machine stopped. Its head turned, slowly scanning the area. Ryan tried to crawl away, but his hands left trails of steam. The ice cracked under his knees. The machine saw it. It screeched, a horrible sound like metal grinding against bone, and lunged toward him. Ryan jumped up and ran, but it was fast, too fast. Suddenly, the air around him shimmered. Without thinking, he turned to fight. The machine leaped at him, claws raised. Ryan raised his arms. There was a blinding flash. A wave of heat exploded from his body, throwing the machine backward. Snow boiled. Ice shattered. Ryan stared at his hands. They were glowing now, lit from within, veins pulsing with golden red light. "What is this?" he whispered. The machine stood again, damaged but not down. It came at him a second time. This time, Ryan didn't run. He clenched his fists and flame burst from his knuckles. His boots left melted footprints in the snow as he moved forward. The machine lunged. Ryan struck with his glowing fist, and the machine cracked apart, falling in smoking pieces. He fell to one knee, exhausted and shaking. The heat inside him faded, but not fully. Something inside had changed. He wasn't just human anymore. He wasn't sure what he was. Far away, Elara's scanner beeped. She had been tracking signals from the patrol. One dot had vanished. Another was still moving, heading toward the colony. "Ryan," she whispered. The signal was weak, but alive. She grabbed her jacket and gear, heart pounding. "Hang on. I'm coming." Above them, in the alien command ship, the air actor general watched the battle footage in silence. He rewound the moment Ryan burned through the ice. One of his advisors stepped forward. "Is it a weapon?" "No," the general growled. "It's worse." He stared at the screen, where a human glowed with unnatural fire. It's a mistake we should not have made. And somewhere in the snow, Ryan Hale began to walk again, leaving behind a trail of steam and a warning written in melted stone. The wind roared across the snowy cliffs as Elora drove the snow cruiser through the storm. The vehicle shook with every gust, but she held the controls tightly, eyes focused on the radar. One dot blinked ahead. Ryan's signal. Weak but alive. That was all she needed. She had packed emergency supplies, medkits, and energy cells. She didn't know what she'd find, but something inside told her Ryan was in trouble, and not just from the weather. 10 minutes later, the cruiser reached a ridge near the broken forest. Elora stepped out, her boots sinking deep into the snow. The sky above was dark, with flashes of blue light far in the distance. The air smelled strange, like burning metal. Then she saw him. Ryan stood near a cliff's edge, his body steaming in the cold. His coat was half burned, and strange red light pulsed under his skin. Snow melted around his feet in a wide circle. "Ryan," she shouted. He turned slowly. His eyes were tired, but when he saw her, they softened. "You came," he said, his voice hoarse. She ran to him and wrapped her arms around him. His body was warm, no hot. She pulled back quickly. "You're burning up. What happened to you?" "I don't know," he said. "I was ambushed. Something woke up inside me. When I was hurt, it just lit up." Elora touched his hand. It shimmered with light under the skin like fire trapped in glass. "This isn't natural," she said. "Something triggered it." He nodded, and the aliens saw it. They're afraid. They sat together in the snow, and Ryan told her everything: the machines, the attack, the way his body fought back. She listened carefully, then opened her pack and pulled out a small device. "What's that?" he asked. "A neural stabilizer," she said. "It's old tech, used in deep space missions. It might help balance the energy in you, at least until we figure out what's happening." She gently placed it at the base of his neck. It beeped, then glowed softly. Ryan's breathing eased. "I feel clearer," he said. "Good, because we have to move. The colony is next." As they prepared to leave, Elora scanned the cliff with her goggles. There were tracks, alien tracks, heading toward the valley. Dozens of them. "They're digging into the mountain," she said. "And I don't think it's just for resources. They're looking for something." Ryan stood tall, the red glow now steady under his skin. "Then we find it first." They climbed into the snow cruiser. As the engine roared to life, the snow behind them melted in their path. From above, it looked like fire cutting through ice. The storm followed them, but they didn't slow down. Time was running out, and the truth was buried somewhere deep beneath the snow. What the Erector feared was not just one man. It was what humanity might become when pushed too far. And now, the fire had awakened. Deep beneath the snowy mountains of Avalar Prime, a different world existed, dark, cold, and full of fear. Metal walls lined the tunnels, glowing with dim blue lights. The Erector machines had dug deep into the earth, creating a prison where no sunlight could reach. The air was heavy with dust and silence, broken only by the hum of alien engines and the occasional cry of pain. Inside one of the prison chambers, a group of human survivors huddled together. Their hands were tied, and their faces pale from cold and hunger. Among them was a teenage boy named Kellen, the youngest on the Northern Patrol. He had been captured during the first wave of attacks, dragged underground with others before they could fight back. Kellen sat near the back of the chamber, his arms around his knees, shivering. But his eyes were sharp. He had been listening, watching, learning. The Erector didn't just want to destroy the colony. They wanted something more, something hidden beneath the ice. Across the room, a small alien device floated through the air, scanning the prisoners. It paused in front of each one, taking blood samples and flashing strange lights. When it came to Kellen, it stopped longer than usual. It blinked red, then green, then red again. "They're testing us," he whispered to the woman beside him. "Looking for something." She gave a weak nod. "What though?" "I don't know," Kellen said. "But I heard them talking. They mentioned a vault. Something built into the mountain long before we got here." "A vault?" He leaned closer. "They said it rejected the Air-Actor once before. Thousands of years ago. They think it's some kind of weapon. Or maybe a guardian." The woman's eyes widened. "And now they want to control it." Kellen nodded. "But I think they're afraid it might choose someone else instead." Just then, the chamber door opened. 2 tall Air-Actor guards entered, pulling another prisoner behind them. He was unconscious, covered in snow and bruises. They threw him to the floor and left without a word. Kellen crawled over and checked the man's pulse. He was alive. As Kellen leaned closer, he noticed something strange. The man's chest glowed faintly, just like Ryan's had in the snow. "Another one," Kellen whispered. Far above them, Ilara and Ryan drove through the storm toward the northern cliffs. The mountains rose tall and silent, hiding secrets older than any human map. Ryan stared ahead, his body still warm with strange energy. He didn't know why he had changed or what was waiting under the ice. But he felt something pulling him toward it, like a voice he couldn't hear, but somehow understood. "We're getting close," Ilara said. Ryan nodded. "I can feel it." Beneath their feet, in the heart of the mountain, the alien vault remained sealed, but not asleep. It was waiting for someone. And the fire had already knocked on its door. The wind roared louder as Ilara and Ryan climbed higher into the mountains. The snowcruiser couldn't go any farther, so they continued on foot. The cliffs were steep, and the air was thin. Each breath felt like ice in their lungs. Ryan walked ahead, his footsteps melting the snow beneath him. His body still pulsed with heat, glowing slightly under his skin. It didn't hurt, but it didn't feel normal either. He had become something different, something stronger, but it scared him. Ilara followed closely, her backpack heavy with gear. She kept glancing at Ryan, worried about how long he could hold this power. She had seen the fear in his eyes, even though he tried to hide it. "We'll stop in that cave," she said, pointing to a narrow opening in the rock. They stepped inside, shaking off snow. The cave was dry and quiet. Ilara quickly set up a heater and pulled out the neural stabilizer. Ryan sat down, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside him. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Every time I get angry or scared, the fire gets stronger. It's like it's alive inside me." She took his hand gently. It was warm, too warm, but she didn't pull away. "Then we'll learn to control it. Together." He looked into her eyes. "You're not afraid of me?" "No," she said, "because I know who you are. You're still you." She placed the stabilizer on his back and adjusted the settings. The light around him calmed a little, and the heat faded to a steady glow. "Better?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, much." They sat in silence for a while, the only sound being the soft wind outside the cave. Then Ryan spoke. "Do you think this power came from the mountain?" "Maybe," Ilara said. "Or maybe it was always inside you, waiting for the right moment. The Air-Actor called it a mistake. But I don't think it is. I think it's a message." "A message?" She nodded. "That they shouldn't have messed with us." Ryan smiled, a real smile this time. "Then let's deliver that message." The next morning, they continued toward the dig site. On the way, they saw signs of battle, burned trees, shattered ice, and alien machines half buried in the snow. But no human bodies. "They're still alive," Ryan said. "They have to be." When they reached the edge of the Air-Actor camp, Ilara used a hacked drone to scan the area. The prisoners were being held deep underground near the vault. The aliens were close to breaking it open. "We don't have much time," she said. Ryan clenched his fists. Flames danced across his knuckles. "Then let's make every second count." Together, they moved into the storm once more. This time, they weren't just trying to survive. They were going to fight back. And in the cold heart of the mountains, fire was about to rise. The snow fell gently now, soft and quiet. Ryan and Elara crouched behind a ridge, looking down at the Arak tour camp. Alien machines moved like shadows, dragging strange equipment toward the vault entrance at the base of the mountain. The vault doors were huge, carved with glowing symbols that pulsed in slow patterns, as if they were breathing. Elara tapped her wrist screen and whispered, "I've seen symbols like these before, in old research logs from Earth's early space missions. No one could read them." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Then who built this vault?" Elara looked at him. "Not humans, not the Erector. Someone older, much older." They moved quickly, using the storm for cover. Ryan melted paths through the snow as they got closer. When they reached the edge of the vault platform, Elara sent a small drone inside through a crack in the door. The feed came through on her visor. Inside was a massive chamber, lit by a soft blue glow. Floating platforms hung in the air, and in the center stood a tall crystal structure, pulsing with energy. Around it, ancient machines, long asleep, lined the walls. And beneath it all, the remains of a very old message blinked slowly in code. Elara's breath caught in her throat. "It's an AI. A guardian." Before they could say more, a soft hum filled the air. The vault door creaked open, just enough for one person to slip through. Ryan stepped forward. "I have to go in," he said. Elara grabbed his arm. "It could be a trap." "I know," he said, "but I think it's calling me. I've felt this since the fire started. This place, it knows me." She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll cover you." Ryan entered the vault, the glow from his skin matching the light from the walls. The air inside felt warmer, calmer. As he stepped near the crystal, a deep voice echoed in his mind, not with words, but with memories. Images of stars being born, galaxies spinning, and ancient beings walking through fire. Then came one clear thought: "You are the spark." Ryan's body lifted off the ground slightly. The fire inside him steadied. The pain vanished. His mind filled with knowledge, not everything, just enough. Outside, Elara watched the Erector begin to panic. Their sensors had picked up the energy shift. They knew someone had entered the vault. Inside, the Crystal Guardian spoke again. "This world is not your final test, but your fire will light the path." Suddenly, a hidden door opened behind the crystal. Ryan walked through and found rows of pods, each one containing what looked like a human sleeping in ice. His eyes widened. Seated, we were seated. The truth was clear now. Humans weren't just survivors. They were chosen, long ago, by a race that had vanished. Outside, Elara saw the vault door light up. Ryan stepped out, his body glowing brighter than before. "We have allies we've never met," he said, "and enemies who now realize we're not alone." The sky darkened as storm clouds gathered over Avalar Prime. Elara and Ryan stood at the edge of the mountain, watching the Erector forces prepare for a final attack. Alien war machines moved in rows, their metal bodies shining cold under the dim light. The ground trembled beneath their feet. "We can't let them break through," Elara said, her voice steady but urgent. "If they reach the vault, everything is lost." Ryan's hands glowed bright red, the fire inside him burning stronger than ever. "Then we fight." Together, they called on the people of the colony. Soldiers, technicians, and even the few recovered prisoners gathered in the cold. The air filled with determination, but also fear. This battle would decide their future. Suddenly, from the depths of the mountain, a low rumble echoed through the valley. The ground shook violently. Snow and ice cracked and tumbled down the cliffs. Out of the glacier emerged a massive creature, an avalanche worm. Its body was long and covered in icy armor plates, with glowing eyes that burned like hot coals. It rose from the earth like a god of frost and stone. The Erector forces stopped, stunned by the sudden appearance. Ryan stepped forward, fire blazing from his fists. "What is that?" Elara's eyes widened. It's a mountain guardian, an ancient defender created by the firstborn architects. They buried it here to protect the vault. The creature roared, sending a wave of freezing wind that knocked soldiers off their feet. It charged at the Aeraktor machines, crushing them with powerful swings of its armored tail. The ground shook with every step. The battle began. Ryan ran into the fray, his body a blazing flame against the icy beast. He leaped onto the creature's back, gripping the spiked plates. The worm thrashed wildly, trying to throw him off. Flames clashed with frost as man and monster fought together against their common enemy. Ilara directed the colony's defenses, using her drones to strike at the enemy machines. She watched as her people fought bravely, inspired by Ryan's fiery courage. But the Aeraktor were not done. From their command ship, a giant energy beam fired down, aiming to destroy the mountain guardian. The beam struck the glacier, causing a huge explosion. Snow and rock fell in avalanches, threatening to bury everything. Ryan shielded Ilara with a wall of fire, protecting her from the falling debris. "We can't hold this alone," he shouted. Ilara nodded, her face set with determination. "Then we awaken the others." She sent a signal to the vault, activating the pods inside. Slowly, more humans began to awaken, gifted with powers like Ryan's, their bodies glowing with fire and energy. One by one, they joined the fight, turning the tide against the Aeraktor. The sky lit up with flames and ice, a war between fire and frost on the snowy peaks. Ryan shouted to the newly awakened fighters, "This is our home. We are the Avalanche Lords now." And as the battle raged, the mountain itself seemed to come alive, its ancient power rising to protect the humans it had chosen. The war was far from over, but for the first time, hope burned bright in the cold.